You are a trashy embarrassment to this family, and we cannot risk you ruining a $100,000 event. My mother sneered, standing in my living room with her arms crossed, officially banning me from my own cousin's destination wedding. Thank you for watching this video. Before I take you back there, do me one small favor. Take a second to like and subscribe and tell me in the comments where you are watching from and what time it is where you are. It helps more than you know. My name is Bellamy. I am 28 years old, and I work as a digital public relations strategist in Austin, Texas. For as long as I can remember, I have been the designated scapegoat of my family. I was the invisible daughter, the one whose achievements were entirely ignored, while her perceived flaws were magnified under a staggering, suffocating microscope. My mother, Sutton, was a woman who built her entire identity around the fragile illusion of high society. She was a woman utterly obsessed with class, status, and the desperate approval of her wealthy neighbors. In her mind, she was royalty, ruling a tiny, pathetic empire of country club gossip and manicured lawns. And in that empire, my cousin Waverly was the undisputed golden child. Waverly was 34, a woman who possessed a perfectly polished exterior that hid an absolutely empty, echoing void beneath. Everything Waverly did was celebrated as a profound triumph. When she announced her engagement to the heir of a massive corporate real estate fortune, my mother practically lost her mind with sheer joy. The wedding was going to be a completely extravagant affair in Aspen, Colorado. It was a $100,000 spectacle designed for one single purpose: to make everyone else fiercely, deeply jealous. For months, the impending wedding was the only topic of conversation. The fittings, the imported flowers, the exclusive guest list. I sat through countless family dinners, silently enduring the endless bragging, assuming that, as a blood relative, I would be subjected to the actual event. I was entirely wrong. The night my mother came to my apartment to deliver the news, the air in my living room grew completely stagnant, heavy with the immense weight of her staggering arrogance. She walked in uninvited, clutching a thick gold leaf envelope. She dropped it onto my coffee table with a soft, heavy thud. But she did not slide it toward me. She kept her manicured hand firmly pressed against it. Waverly and I have made a decision regarding the wedding, my mother stated, her voice dripping with absolute venom. You are not invited. You have always lacked grace, Bellamy. You are a trashy embarrassment to this family, and we cannot risk you ruining a $100,000 event with your lack of sophistication. The words hung in the air, sharp and vicious. My heart shattered into a million unrecognizable fragments beneath my ribs. The sheer cruelty of being erased from my own family, of being looked at by my own mother as if I were a piece of garbage staining her pristine carpet, was a profound agony. But I did not scream. I did not cry. Over the years, I had learned that showing them pain only gave them power. Instead, my veins ran completely cold. I retreated behind a wall of solid ice. I wish them the best, Mother. I truly do. My voice was a frozen whisper. My mother blinked, clearly entirely unsettled by my absolute calm. She had come expecting a screaming match, a desperate plea for acceptance that she could triumphantly reject. When I offered her nothing but icy silence, her mask slipped for just a fraction of a second, revealing the confused predator beneath. She snatched the gold leaf invitation off the table, turned on her designer heel, and slammed my front door behind her. As the lock clicked, my frozen exterior crumbled. I sank to the hardwood floor and wept until I could barely breathe. I realized in that utterly devastating moment that there was nothing I could ever do to earn their love. To them, I was not a daughter or a cousin. I was a liability. But as I sat there in the dark, the crushing grief slowly transformed into something else. The immense pain hardened into a staggering, profound clarity. I wiped my face. I stood up. They thought they had discarded me, but they had no idea the trap they were walking into. 3 days later, my phone vibrated loudly on my kitchen counter. It was Tamsin, my absolute best friend and a wildly talented freelance photographer. She was speaking so fast she was practically hyperventilating. Bellamy, I am in a state of sheer panic, Tamsin gasped. I have a massive wedding tomorrow at the nature reserve just outside the city. It is a stunning venue, but my media assistant just canceled. I need someone who understands digital strategy, and pacing to help me capture the social media content. I know it is extremely last minute, but I am entirely desperate. I looked at the calendar on my wall. Tomorrow was Saturday. It was the exact same day Waverly would be marching down an aisle in Aspen, surrounded by a sea of forced smiles and borrowed wealth. My family would be sipping expensive champagne, completely secure in the knowledge that they had successfully locked the Trashy Embarrassment out of their golden empire. I will be there, I said, my voice steady. Saturday afternoon arrived bathed in an absolutely golden radiant sunlight. Tamsin and I drove out to a lush, sprawling nature reserve. The moment I stepped out of the car, I felt an immense, profound peace. There was no suffocating tension here. There was no desperate scrambling for status. The bride, a 29-year-old woman named Elodie, was wearing a beautifully restored vintage gown she had found at a local thrift boutique. She did not have a professional styling team or a diamond tiara. She had wildflowers woven into her hair, and her smile was completely, utterly breathtaking. The groom, Hayes, looked at her as if she were the only person breathing on the entire planet. As I helped Tamsin set up the lighting, I pulled my phone from my pocket. I opened Instagram. My feed was absolutely flooded with images from Aspen. My mother had been posting relentlessly. There were photos of ice sculptures, towering floral arrangements, and Waverly glaring into the camera with a stiff, practiced pout. Every single image felt entirely sterile. It was a performance. It was a cold, calculated transaction of wealth and vanity. I put my phone away and picked up my secondary camera. The ceremony in the nature reserve began. There was no grand orchestra, just a single acoustic guitar playing a soft, folk melody. When Elodie walked down the grass aisle, Hayes completely broke down. He wept with such profound, staggering joy that there was not a single dry eye in the small crowd of 50 guests. It was raw. It was vulnerable. It was real. I knew exactly what I was looking at. As a digital public relations strategist, I spent my entire career understanding the subtle mechanics of human connection. I knew what the internet was desperately starving for. People were entirely exhausted by fake, hyper-polished performances of wealth. They were hungry for authenticity. I began to record. I captured the tears sliding down Hayes's cheeks. I captured the gentle, shaking way Elodie wiped them away. I captured the sheer, unadulterated love that radiated from them like a beacon. During the reception, while the guests danced barefoot under a canopy of oak trees, I sat in the corner and began to edit. I layered the raw footage with a soft, instrumental track. I wrote a single minimalist caption about finding a love that does not need a price tag to prove its worth. I utilized every algorithm trigger, every strategic tag, and every pacing metric I had spent years mastering. I set the digital trap and I pushed publish. By the time Tamsin and I packed up our equipment at midnight, the video had crossed 100,000 views. By the time I woke up on Sunday morning, my phone was almost melting from the sheer volume of notifications. I sat up in bed and stared at the screen in absolute disbelief. 10 million views. 200,000 comments. The video had escaped the normal algorithm and entered the realm of a cultural phenomenon. Major media outlets were sharing it. Celebrities were commenting on it, stating it was the most profoundly beautiful wedding they had ever witnessed. And because the internet is a vicious, highly connected predator, it did not take long for the algorithm to start pushing my video directly against Waverly's highly promoted wedding hashtags. The contrast was staggering. Users began cross-referencing the two events. The comments on Waverly's sterile, $100,000 wedding photos became absolutely brutal. Strangers from across the globe were tearing down her pristine facade. They called her wedding a soulless corporate merger. They mocked the extravagant waste. They contrasted her stiff, unhappy photos directly with the sheer, vibrant joy of Elodie and Hayes. My viral masterpiece was completely eclipsing her expensive coronation. At exactly 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the heavy, frantic pounding started at my front door. I walked slowly down the hallway. I unlocked the deadbolt and pulled the door open. My mother stood there, her face completely drained of color. Her perfect hair was slightly disheveled, and her eyes were wide with sheer, unadulterated panic. But she was not alone. Standing directly behind her was a tall, severe-looking man in a dark charcoal suit holding a thick leather briefcase. "You will take it down right this second," my mother hissed, stepping into my apartment without asking. Her voice was trembling, stripping away every ounce of her usual refined elegance. "Take what down?" I asked, my tone entirely blank. "Do not play stupid with me, Bellamy," she screamed, her mask completely shattering, leaving nothing but a desperate, cornered animal. "Your little video. It is everywhere. People are flooding Waverly's pages with insults. Her new in-laws are absolutely mortified. The entire society board is laughing at us. You deliberately sabotaged your cousin's big day to humiliate us." The man in the suit stepped forward, his expression completely devoid of emotion. "Miss Bellamy," he said in a deep, authoritative voice, "I am the senior corporate attorney representing the estate and family trust of Waverly's new husband. I have in my possession a formal cease and desist warrant. We are prepared to file an immediate federal injunction against you for digital defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and intellectual property infringement." He pulled a thick stack of legal documents from his briefcase and slammed them onto my kitchen counter. The heavy thud echoed through the silent apartment. My mother crossed her arms, a smug, triumphant smile slowly creeping back onto her pale face. They thought the mere presence of a corporate attorney and a federal threat would force me to completely surrender. They thought I was still the terrified little girl they could bully into submission. They were profoundly mistaken. I did not flinch. I did not look at the papers. I looked directly into the corporate attorney's eyes, and the air around us dropped to freezing. "You are a very long way from a federal courthouse, sir," I said, my voice completely smooth and steady. "And as a senior attorney, you should be acutely aware that filing a frivolous injunction is a sanctionable offense. There is no defamation because I never mentioned Waverly's name, nor did I mention her husband, nor did I tag their location. There is no intellectual property infringement because I filmed the footage on a public nature reserve, and I own the exclusive singular copyright to the digital assets in question. I am a professional public relations strategist. I know federal communication guidelines better than you know your golf handicap." The attorney froze. The absolute certainty in my voice stopped him dead in his tracks. "Furthermore," I continued, taking one step closer to my mother, "if you attempt to serve me with a fraudulent cease and desist, I will immediately forward it to the legal correspondents at the 3 major news networks currently begging me for an exclusive interview. I will give them the full, unedited story of how a wealthy family tried to legally silence a young woman for simply posting a beautiful video of a stranger's wedding. How do you think that headline will impact your client's precious corporate estate?" The attorney swallowed hard. The color completely drained from his face. He recognized a losing battle, and he recognized a trap that had snapped shut perfectly around his ankle. Without saying another word, he reached out, grabbed the legal documents off the counter, shoved them into his briefcase, and walked straight out the front door. My mother was left standing entirely alone in my kitchen. Her golden empire was actively crumbling around her, turning into worthless ash. She looked at me, her eyes wide with immense terror, finally realizing that the daughter she had dismissed as a trashy embarrassment held the absolute power to destroy her entire social existence. "You said I was a trashy embarrassment, Mother?" I whispered, the ice in my voice cutting straight to her bone. "So I took my trash elsewhere. You banned me from your $100,000 event. You should be absolutely thrilled that I respected your wishes. Now get out of my apartment, and do not ever speak to me again." She tried to open her mouth. She tried to formulate a response, but there were no words left to manipulate me with. She turned around and walked out, her shoulders completely slumped, her pristine facade shattered beyond all repair. 3 days later, my doorbell rang again. This time it was Waverly. She was wearing a loose sweatshirt and her face was bare. Her eyes were swollen and red. The proud, arrogant golden child was completely gone. She stood in my doorway and wept uncontrollably. She confessed that her wedding had been an absolute nightmare of stress and fake pleasantries. She confessed that she had spent $100,000 to impress a room full of strangers, and she could not even remember the moment she said her vows. She admitted that seeing my video, seeing the sheer authentic joy on Elodie's face, had completely broken her, because it forced her to realize how utterly empty her own life truly was. I did not offer her a shoulder to cry on. I did not forgive her. I simply handed her a tissue, closed my door, and locked it. Some bridges are burned so completely that the ashes blow away in the wind, leaving nothing left to rebuild. 18 months later, I am sitting in the corner office of my own digital communications agency in downtown Austin. The viral wedding video launched my career into an entirely different stratosphere. I represent national brands, helping them craft campaigns based on genuine human connection, rather than sterile corporate posturing. I am completely independent, profoundly successful, and utterly at peace. Meanwhile, my mother has become a total laughingstock in her exclusive social circles, entirely ostracized for the embarrassing spectacle her legal threats caused when the rumors inevitably leaked. Waverly is currently navigating a highly contested, absolutely bitter divorce, fighting over the remnants of an estate that never brought her a single ounce of joy. I survived the freezing cold of their rejection, and I used it to build a life of absolute warmth and unshakable power. You see, the greatest tragedy of those who worship illusions is that they eventually have to wake up in the real world. I have built a fortress of genuine love and profound success that no amount of their inherited wealth or country club status could ever purchase. Sometimes the absolute best revenge is simply living a genuine, beautiful life, while the people who try to destroy you are forced to watch from the shadows. Thank you so much for watching my story today. If you have ever dealt with a toxic family member, or had a moment where the truth finally came out, I would absolutely love to hear your story down in the comments. Do not forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so we can keep sharing these incredible journeys together.